This video should have been the first video about the Stay Out game on this channel, and at this point this video may become the last. I will point out some historical points of this game, as well as a review. Pros and cons. Why didn't I do this at the beginning of the videos that serve as a guide? I simply don't think it's fair to install a game, run it for a few hours or days, and then present a relatively weak point of view of a minimal experience given the complexity of this game. Like most people interested in Stay Out, I was looking for a player versus player FPS game. That's right, I'm reporting my first experience with the game, and I won't be long. I did my search on Steam 3 years ago, and saw the intro video and thought it would be a good idea to give it a try. At this time my researcher side was on standby, and when I was at Lesnaya Station the dark and tense environment put me in a state of synesthesia, anxious and moderately grounded with hints of strangeness and trying to understand the game's mechanism at the same time. Walking through a post-apocalyptic environment that has anomalies that affect the physical health of your character in the game is something that deserves a lot of clarification in the initial phase of a game. For those who saw my video about the psychology of games, you know that a game needs to have a balance between the players, the environment, the performance, and the interaction so that the players don't get frustrated and end up giving up on the game. Well, the psychology and philosophy adopted by the developers, plus the cultural nuances present in the game, leave it in a very difficult level range right from the first steps a player takes within the mechanism. Let's go to the historical points. The game is rated 14 years old. And Stay Out originally appeared under the title Stalker Online and may have changed its name to avoid copyright issues with the creators of the Stalker games. The game is mainly inspired by the 1979 film Stalker by director Andrei Tarkovsky. Spoiler alert. In the film, a stalker guides two men into the zone, specifically an area where deeply seated wishes are granted. Near a nameless, gray city that lies within the zone, a place guarded by barbed wire and soldiers, and where the normal laws of physics are subject to frequent anomalies. The zone that arose on Earth for unknown reasons attracts attention with inexplicable phenomena that occur there. A rumor has spread that in the center of the zone there is something that gives a person everything he wants. But staying in the zone is deadly, and therefore it is strictly guarded. If you would like to see the film, there is a link in the description of this video to the full film on YouTube. As Stay Out is a post-apocalyptic game set in a scenario of desolation and destruction, which could be the result of a catastrophic event such as a nuclear war, a global pandemic or a natural disaster. Science fiction, particularly the subcategory of post-apocalyptic fiction, is a genre that explores how humanity copes with survival and reconstruction after a collapse. In these scenarios, the landscape, society, and resources are drastically altered. Even though the environment created is fictional, some degree of realism was employed in the work. Be kind to yourself and to the post-apocalyptic philosophy and psychology employed in this already established game. A quote from Marie Curie. "Life is not easy for any of us. But what of that? We must have perseverance and, above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something, and that this thing, at whatever cost, must be attained." This is a quote from the 1930s and can be quite enlightening as to the psychological state of an era. Returning to Lesnaya Station. Until November of this year, simply going through the map considered as the opening of the game where each player should obtain basic fundamental knowledge about the game's mechanism and then move on was very complex, not to say negligent, as the developers knew they were leaving the Russian niche, and that they were increasing the reach of the game they created. But let's look at it as we are. We want our ideas and ideals to be at least understood by those around us, right? This is a very common desire that every human being who is not yet fully mature has. Remember that maturity is relative, and for some it comes sooner and for others later. What is really relevant here is that there is a maturation factor, both of the developers and of the game and of the players. We must not forget that we are part of the same machine, since the bond is created by the object of desire, which in this case is the game, both for developers and for players. In other words, all parties need to seek to understand each other. And now I congratulate the players who had contact with the developers and who pointed out a need for basic knowledge as a basis for this first map. Because I doubt that out of nowhere the developers saw a flaw of this magnitude in a game that is no longer just for the Russian public. Yes, now in December 2024 I finally got to see the basic fundamentals of Stay Out being employed on the Lesnaya station map. Before this moment Vortex had been and is the creator of the collaborative website SO Wiki, with step-by-step instructions for practically all the tasks that the game Stay Out has. This site is in the description of all the Stay Out videos on this channel, and it was this site that helped me overcome the challenge of leaving the Lesnaya station map. Just as it has always served as a basis for creating game guide videos, since I am a visual person, that is, I learn better by watching than by reading, I decided it would be cool to continue the work of another guy from the Gaming Central channel, who made Stay Out videos, but out of nowhere his playlist about Stay Out simply disappeared. Arriving in Lübeck. Okay, once you get to Lübeck, the tasks improve a little and you start to have contact with more experienced players who are willing to help you, if you don't understand some tasks very well. However, at Lesnaya station the map did not have the player versus player option active, and in Lübeck this is different, and you run the risk of being killed in the middle of your task. Lübeck is a small map that serves as a transition to your knowledge base about the gameplay mechanics of Stay Out. At Lesnaya station, if you are starting the game for the first time, you are a complete noob just like everyone else who has ever been there. In Lübeck you become less noob, and as soon as you enter the Lübecka's Outlands you already have experience of the game mechanics, and this is where player versus player begins to take shape. From Lübecka's Outlands you will be able to go to the airport map for the first time without paying 30,000 rubles. Only by completing a task that consists of delivering car spark plugs to a non-playable character. From the second time you go to the airport you pay 30,000 rubles to the NPC. However, in this map you do not have a warehouse to store your things, just as there is no other place to buy medicines. The road that takes you to the airport is full of anomalies that undermine your character's health, causing you to become unconscious, and having to choose between waiting for someone to revive you or starting your journey over again. Another map possibility is Vesuvius, but you will have to perform tasks to access other tasks that will give you the opportunity to gain the reputation necessary for you to access the Vesuvius map. A very important point to pay attention to is that there are factions that try to gain control of the zone, and you need to have a positive reputation with each of them to be able to walk freely around the zone. If your reputation is negative with a certain faction, you will not be able to pass through territories that are dominated by that faction, as you will definitely die. The point at which you become an experienced player. But don't be scared, as you will hardly ever have 3,000 negative points with any of the factions. Unless you are a very careless person. From my point of view you will stop being a noob in this game when you finally access the Tunguska map or the New Earth map. In the meantime, perhaps you have joined one of the clans that reside in the Lübecka's Outlands. Pros and cons. Cons. The developers apparently love existentialism as the basis for the basic gameplay fundamentals, as it is clear to me that they explored the purpose and value of human existence in the game, but left the basis of information passed on to players rotten. Pros. The game is very good, and once players overcome the difficulties due to the lack of information, consciously or unconsciously the players absorb the existentialist content and at least begin to understand it better, becoming addicted to the game. Well, I've finished here, and if you have a different point of view than mine, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching until the end.